Thank you for joining us today for a very informative discussion on how to talk to your legislator. My name is Janel Johnson-Momanyi, and I am an advocacy manager at the Hemophilia Federation of America. We are going to have a great conversation about tips for meeting with your legislator, how to handle that interaction, and we're also going to have some special guests to join us today. We're going to talk about challenges to advocacy. Wendi Owens, who is the principal investigator as well as the project manager of the Choice Project, is going to let us know about issues facing the community. And we're going to have two community members speak about their experience at HFA's most recent Hill Day back in June. But what happens with our community, sometimes emergencies happen, and one of our participants did have an emergency that happened in the past hour, so she will not be able to join us today, but I will tell a little bit about her story. Now, there are a few housekeeping issues. Because of the fact that we are going to open the mic to have certain people speak and to also hear your questions, we want to make sure that background noise is kept to a minimum when that happens. In that way, when we record the webinar is being recorded, so when we listen to it again after recording it today, we won't have that background noise. All right, so please get your questions ready. If you want to ask a question, there is a panel on the side of your screen where you can type in your question, and then at the end I'll open up the mics to have questions asked directly. So don't wait until the end to get your questions ready, and that way we can have them on hand as the webinar comes to a conclusion. Alrighty, so first off, talking to your legislator. Let's set the stage. Think about things like prior to your meeting. Know your role during your meeting and after your meeting. There are many different scenarios for where you will speak with a legislator. It could be a state legislator. It could be a federal legislator. So different things like, where you're going to meet and things like that need to be worked out in advance. Let's deal with prior to your meeting. So prior to your meeting, you want to be prepared. Being prepared with your talking points. You not only want to have your talking points, but you want to practice saying them. That way, when you deliver them, it will be a nice, even flow to your message. And if you're a person who sometimes gets nervous, that'll help take the edge off of being nervous. The more you practice, the more confident you will be in your delivery. And that way, you'll be more convincing to the person with whom you're speaking. You also want to make sure that you know the issues that the particular legislator with whom you're going to meet supports. That will give you insight into how you can word your particular issue, and also it would help you relate to that particular person. You don't necessarily have to agree on their political affiliation. The one great thing about hemophilia and bleeding disorders is that it crosses all party aisles. So what you want to do is to be able to make a connection, and the way that you can do that is knowing a little bit about the person that you're going to see. If it's not someone with whom you are very familiar, you can always find out as much as you can via a quick Google search. That way you'll know who the person is and a little bit about them, because they'll have something describing their most recent committees that they've joined or different legislations that they support on their website. So you can look at that. And again, the whole purpose of that is to help you find common ground. Now, one of the most important things that many people don't think about until the day of is to know exactly where the office is. You'd be surprised that some people show up at the State House and also in Washington, D.C. to meet with legislators, but they haven't quite mapped out where the office is. Something as simple as locating where you should go, which hallway you should go down, those will help you save time. Knowing exactly where you're going to go can make the difference between your particular member or your legislator not being available because of an impromptu meeting, Or you can also have an opportunity to miss persons with whom you were supposed to have the meeting with. So just make sure you know exactly where you're going, what time you all are supposed to be there. And that way you have plenty of time to get to where you're supposed to be. Know your role. Every meeting has a different purpose. Now, if it's a meeting where you are the only person who is going to meet with the legislator, then you are the team leader, you are the constituent, most probably, and you also the participant. We do have occasions where we can meet with a legislator. We're not necessarily a part of his or her district, but we're going to drop off information. And in that case, you would be the team leader and the participant. But if you live in that district where that person represents the population, you are the team leader, the constituent, and the participant. So with that, it's important that people understand what their particular piece is. You will appear to be a well-oiled machine if there's a group of you, and that's what's key, because you want to make sure that the person that you're meeting with has an understanding that every person in that office is a unified team. When you are the team leader, you are the person who will make the introductions between yourself, the staff person, or yourself and the member, or yourself and the reception office. When you're the team leader, you also may be the person who answers the technical questions. Some folks may be along to share their story, and then there may be someone who's along to discuss the particular legislation or what the particular issue is. Then there's someone who can direct the meeting. The team leader usually decides, the order of introduction, and be cognizant of that. And again, the whole point is to go into the meeting as a well-oiled machine, and that's why a team leader is necessary. There also may be a team leader who leaves the information about the issues behind in the office, or that can be designated to someone else. If you are the constituent, it's your role to tell your story. The reason that you want to tell your story is that you can identify with that member. There is a direct connection between you and that particular legislator. When the legislator knows that you live in his or her community, that legislator knows that you are the person who can vote him or her out of office. Now, it's important to remember that legislators work for you, but it's also important that you make a connection with that legislator, because sometimes you can meet with a staff person, not the legislator, but that staff person could possibly one day become a legislator. Whenever you are interacting in any of the offices, make sure that you develop great relationships. A constituent has an advantage in that the person who is having the meeting, whether it's a staff person that you're meeting with or a legislator, they can relate to you because they know they are in that office specifically because of your vote or enough votes from members in your community. Now, if you are the participant in a meeting, you are there to offer support. You are also there to tell your story, and you also want to help keep in mind about the things that were discussed prior to the meeting. So if, let's say, the constituent does not mention some of the issues that he or she were responsible for, or if even the team leader forgets to mention something, you can gently nudge, pass a note, or introduce that particular topic. But the key is that there should be a team leader, there should be a constituent whenever possible, and there should also be a participant as a person who understands what their particular role is for that meeting. Perfect example. Today we were going to have two people share their story, but that will only be one person now. So let's say you go to a meeting and the team leader doesn't show, the participant can stop being a participant and then be a team leader, and vice versa. So the roles can change. So the main thing is that you be flexible, but also understand what your role is and understand that your role could evolve or change. During the meeting, speaking of flexibility, it is very important that you be flexible. When we are meeting with legislators, we're dealing with lawmakers, we are dealing with ever-changing schedules, especially when they are in session. If you're having a meeting in a district office, sometimes it's very programmed. there aren't unexpected meetings. If you're meeting with a legislator, whether it's in the State House or in Washington, D.C., however, things can happen very quickly. Be flexible. The meeting may take place in the front hallway. The meeting could take place in the office, or the meeting could take place in the front lobby. Even though you were giving a location and even a time, that could change. You may get a text or an email prior to the meeting that the time has changed because your legislator needs to go and take a vote. Or he or she may have had an unexpected meeting with someone else. So always be flexible and always be pleasant about the changes. The meeting may start on time, or it may start late, or it may even be canceled. If you are receiving a message that a meeting is going to start later, try as best you can to be flexible with that time, but also think about other meetings that you may have so you don't reschedule a meeting and then miss a subsequent meeting. If the meeting is canceled, usually there will be an opportunity to schedule another meeting, and always be gracious and courteous about the time, because everyone has a limited amount of time, and in most cases they will have an opportunity to schedule the meeting for that same day. If it can't be scheduled for that same day and you've traveled a distance to attend that meeting, you may have an opportunity to follow up on the phone or meet in the district office, but any connection is a positive one. That's an opportunity for you to discuss your issue, so don't get discouraged if the meeting starts late, if it's canceled, or if there's an opportunity to meet with a different person that you were originally expecting to meet with. Be flexible, be flexible, be flexible. Now, if you are a part of a group, prepare in advance what time you will meet at that particular legislator's office. Pre-plan who will be the person to inform the receptionist that your group has arrived, and pre-plan who will say what during the meeting. Make sure that you introduce yourself. Usually at the beginning of the meeting, business cards are passed out. So you'll have the business card of either a staff person in that office or the actual legislator. And you should also have information to hand to the staff person or the legislator so they can follow up with you if they have additional questions. Discuss the issues. The team leader will usually decide on the flow of the meeting. When you are discussing the issue, understand who's going to be the person to introduce the issue. Who is the person who's going to share his or her personal story? And who is the person that's going to ask for whatever it is that has been decided is the ask for that day? Sometimes if it's 5 people, 4 people, everyone will have an opportunity at the beginning to say their name and give a 30-second spiel on how the bleeding disorder affects them. That's important because that lets the person that you're meeting with, whether it's a staffer or a legislator, know who's in the room. If you are representing an advocacy organization, they'll know that. If you are a constituent, they'll know that. If you are a community member who is affected by the bleeding disorder, or the spouse of someone who's affected by a bleeding disorder, they'll know that. So prepping for your name, a 30-second spiel on how the bleeding disorder affects you or whatever the issue is key, because that helps the person that you're meeting with know who's in their office. The other thing I want to stress is that even if you're not the constituent, it's important to try your best to make it local. If you're meeting in someone's office who's, say, from California, but you're from Ohio, you can relate to something that happened in California. That way you make it local. Usually the person that you're meeting with will respond to a local event. I've been in meetings where I was in a Michigan office, but the person working in the office is from Ohio. I'm from Ohio. That helped us start a conversation. We went off on a bit of a tangent, but I brought it back to the issue at hand, but they were able to relate to me because they could recognize a fellow Ohioan. So that's the reason for making it local. You don't want to get distracted. You want to come back to the issue, but you want to open up the conversation to set you apart from the hundreds of people that they meet with each day. When you make it local, you make it personal to them. And by making it personal, they will remember you. That's why having your story and how the bleeding disorder affects you or the issue affects you sets you apart from the reams of paper that they get regarding different issues and different bills and different legislation. So making it personal, making it local, discussing the issue is key to helping the legislation that you're rooting for get passed. Then you want to ask for a photo. Shamelessly ask for a photo. Don't hesitate on asking for a photo if it's not the member or the legislator. Ask for the photo with whomever it is that you have the conversation with. You never know where that person may be down the road. That way they feel important, you feel important, and guess what? You can use that photo as a follow-up. Based on the conversation that we had on November 12th, I enjoyed our discussion. These are the things that we discussed, and here's a photo from that meeting. You could also post such a photo on social media, on their social media as well as yours. That keeps your issue in the forefront of their mind. So if there's a baby in the room, definitely ask for a photo. If there are, if it's just you and a legislator, ask for a photo, because you can use that photo down the road to follow up and to stay engaged. So this is a group of Florida members of Hemophilia of Florida, and they are meeting with their legislator, and they're going to follow up and send this photo to him. He's the one with the blue tie, and that way they can help him remember the discussion that happened, because they meet with hundreds of folks, and that way your issue is always on their mind and there's a photo in place. And if it's a great photo, then maybe they'll even display it in their office. So, quick quiz. Who do legislators work for? The answer is you. You are your best advocate. So always be prepared to be the advocate for an issue that's important to you. And that's all it takes, is you discussing what's important to you. Now, sharing your story. Christine Bond was going to join us today, but sadly, she had an unexpected emergency with her son, who does have a bleeding disorder. She says that he's going to be okay, but this happened within the last hour. Christine joined us in June for HFA's Hill Day. She's also featured in the video describing our Hill Day. So if you have not had an opportunity to view HFA's video on our Hill Day, please take an opportunity to review it so you can see Christine's story. She talks about how she prepared for the meeting, what she expected during the meeting, and I know for a fact that she's very involved in Maryland politics. She lives in Maryland, and she's been instrumental in the hemophilia community by advocating not only for her son, but her family and for others in the state of Maryland. She's a great example of how one small voice can make a big difference. It was something that she became passionate about, and we asked her to do many different speaking engagements when we are trying to drum up support for different issues, because this was something that didn't affect her family until it happened with her child. So now she is someone who is very strong in making sure that others understand the issues that affect persons with a bleeding disorder. Talking to your legislator. So before you leave a meeting, offer to be that resource so you can build the relationship. Christine is a resource for legislators. If someone has a great meeting with you, then they'll know that they can reach out to you to get additional information. Offer to follow up. If there's a question that is asked during the meeting and you don't know the answer, that is a great opportunity to follow up. It gives you the chance to have a reason to contact the legislator again, whether it's a state legislator or a federal legislator, about that issue. So I look forward to opportunities where I don't know an answer, because that means that I can be engaged again. Make sure you take the person that you meet with, whether it's a staffer or a legislator, make sure you take his or her business card. That way you can follow up. You'll be amazed at the number of people who at the end of the meeting. If they lose the business card, not a problem. Just contact the office and you can get another one. You can get the contact information. You can follow up. You can send the photo, and you can also answer the question that they may have asked that you didn't know the answer to, and leave your information packet behind. When you leave your information packet behind, I like to call it file drawer number 9. If you tell the legislator or the staffer that you meet with that you're going to follow up, guess what? Your information packet may not go to file drawer number 9, aka the recycle bin, because they meet with so many people. Unless they know that you're planning to follow up with them, your information packet that you've taken great care to create could absolutely end up in the recycle bin. So you want them to keep it in the forefront of your mind. So let them know that you plan to follow up, and absolutely follow up. And this is something that most people don't think goes a long way, but it really does. Be sure to say thank you. They've taken time out of their schedule, whether it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes or longer, to discuss an issue with you. They meet with lots of people. Members of state legislators as well as federal legislators don't get a lot of thank yous, so a little appreciation can go a long way. You'll be surprised at helping someone feel good about their ability to help you can help you in the long run, because they remember that. So be sure to say thank you and send a thank you note. Here on the photo is the Williams family. The Williams family, they've decided to be a resource for their legislator in Florida because their son has an inhibitor. They follow up with the legislator, and they also sent him this awesome photo. They sent him a thank you note because he took time out of his busy schedule to meet with them. They volunteered to be a part of his campaign, and that way they can stay involved not just during legislative day or during a Hill visit, but throughout the year. And the legislator has someone that they can, or he or she can call on to help them with different issues. And you may be invited to other meetings, because if you're the person that they have the best relationship with, you can be that resource, and that's what we want. So always follow up, always offer to be a resource. Take that photo, because you never know where it could come in handy. Now, talking to your legislator, after you've had the meeting about the issue, you want to make sure that you follow the issue. 2 websites are here, openstates.org, openstates.org. You can follow different state issues. In the photo, there are some Maryland legislators who represent the hemophilia community. They are in the meeting with the governor of Maryland, signing a bill that affects the bleeding disorder community into law. Now, the Maryland advocates were at the State House in February. The bill signing happened in May. Not to get too excited, it usually doesn't happen that fast. This legislation was actually 4 years in the making, but how gratifying was it that they met with the different members of the state legislature in February, and then in May, a bill was being signed into law. Also, I want you to point out that it wasn't just Maryland folks with the bleeding disorders community, but they partnered as a collaborative effort with multiple disease groups. And a lot of times, in order to get legislations passed, you have to be willing to partner with others, because there's absolutely strength in numbers. There were members of the arthritis community, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and other patient groups that took part in making sure that this legislation passed. So sometimes you think that other people may have important things to say, but together you can become a unifying force to get Governor O'Malley here centered to sign a bill into law. So consider that, and just think, without advocates to bring about change, there would be so many things that wouldn't be possible. There used to be smoking allowed on airplanes. That's not the case anymore. There was a time when there were no car seats for children in a vehicle. Imagine. Now it's a law that a child must be in a car seat, and there are also booster seat requirements. And there was also a time where there was no medication for people with hemophilia, but now there's several medications. Others are also in development. So advocates are crucial, and they are needed. So openstates.org is how you can follow legislation for your state, and govtrack.us is where you can follow federal legislation. So you're not just going to your state house to talk about an issue. You're not just going to Washington, D.C. to meet with your representatives, but you also want to follow that issue to see where it is. And perhaps if it's not doing well, you can make a phone call, remind that person that you met with them, and discuss the issue further. And if it is going well, you can follow up and thank them for their participation in it. Now, there are some challenges to advocacy. Some people have a fear of public speaking. I am someone who loves to talk to people all the time, but I recognize that not everyone loves to get in front of one person or 1,000 people to give a speech, right? There's also lack of information. I find that oftentimes people are a little afraid because they don't feel like they know enough information, or they feel unsupported. Maybe they think that it's just them. I'll give you a trick. If you can say your name, your first name, and your last name, if you can say it out loud, then you are somebody who can speak publicly. The only difference is you're just going to add different words. So not just your name, but other words, and you are a public speaker. Pictured here is Richard Pizzillo, who's the Director of Communications at HFA. He's on the right. Rich, many people don't know that he used to have an inhibitor. Rich overcame his inhibitor with good medication and healthy lifestyle. He is someone who didn't allow, sometimes he was even confined to a wheelchair, but he didn't allow that to stop him. On the left is Senator Whitehouse. Rich Pizzillo worked in Senator Whitehouse's office. What did that relationship yield? That relationship yielded a legislator who now is an advocate for the bleeding disorders community because of the relationship with a member of his staff to hemophilia. He was educated about hemophilia. He is involved in the programs that HFA has. He was a speaker. He was an honored member of HFA's Hill Day and reception. So when you make relationships, you never know where that relationship will take you, but more importantly, don't let any challenges cause you to feel like you can't contribute. So Rich was persevering through physical ailments, and I'm certain that there were times where he wondered, would he be able to do certain things, but not only did he overcome them, but he is soaring to this day. So you can absolutely turn a challenge into a triumph. If your fear is public speaking, work on it. If it's lack of information, get educated. If you feel unsupported, find people who also believe in what you believe. And that way we can work together to get legislation that we need passed. Sharing your story. So another person who attended the Hill Day is John Palmatier. I'm going to open the lines because I want John to share a little bit about, what he expected about Hill Day, a little bit about his experience, and if there was a difference between the offices that he visited where he was a constituent versus to when he was a participant. So let's have John share his story. I am going to, there we go. Okay, John, can you hear us? Oh, I was hoping that would work perfectly. Okay, so unfortunately, it doesn't look like the mic option was available, so he can't tell us his story. But in preparation for that, because we always need to be flexible and we always need to be prepared, John was in D.C. along with his lovely wife, who's pictured here, because his wife is actually affected by a bleeding disorder, and because of that, he has taken it upon himself to champion the issues that affect people with bleeding disorders. He told me that he enjoyed his experience in DC and that there was a definite difference between the offices that he visited where he was a constituent versus where he was a participant. The reason is you're able to connect on a much personal level with someone when you can relate to, hey, don't you go to the grocery store on Main Street? And then you have all of these different things in common. The fact that they can connect with you means that they will be able to think about the issue that you're saying to them in a more endearing way sometimes than if it were someone with whom they have no personal connection and also a person with whom they work for directly. That's not always the case, but it always helps when there is a constituent in the audience or in the meeting. So always be cognizant of that. And if you are not the constituent, you can also let the legislator or the staffer that you're meeting with know of a constituent who maybe could not have made that meeting, but that you're in contact with them, because that's also important as well. And we're going to work on making sure that our next speaker is able to talk. Okay, so sharing your story is important, so get your stories ready. Now we're going to discuss how to go forward. A lot of things happened over the last 2 weeks. There was a lot of campaigning. There were people who were elected. There were people who were unelected. So we're going to go to Wendi Owens so she can speak to issues facing the community for 2015 and beyond. Wendi, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Janel.
All right, great. Wendi, please let us know about the issues that are facing the bleeding disorders community.
Well, Janel, I wanted to start with the midterm elections that just happened and how we're now seeing a flip from the Democratic-led Senate to a Republican-led. And, you know, the biggest concern for people in this situation is the Republicans have been pushing a complete repeal of the ACA, the Obamacare. And, you know, we're looking at that issue very closely and we'll be following it. We are not concerned that there will be a total all-in repeal. We really feel that there may be parts that they try and get rid of, but otherwise I wouldn't panic at this juncture. But we will be following this issue throughout 2015. Another issue that we're looking at very closely and we continue to look at, which has been around for several years, is specialty tiers. And specialty tiers being an insurance issue and a costly issue for people who are having to pay for products like Factor, which are biologics. We'll be continuing to look at this issue in order to help people keep costs down, to preclude the need to pay their total out-of-pocket costs in the first month or 2 months of the year, and we really need to protect our community against this, so we will be looking at that issue as well. That's a large section on our HFA website about specialty tiers if anyone's interested. Biosimilars are another issue we're looking at. These specifically are medications that are similar in their biology to already approved FDA medications. So these would be ones that are very much like the Factor products that are out there, but not exactly the same.
Okay.
There has been the opportunity for people who are producing biosimilars to kind of make a fast clip through the approval process, the drug approval process, but this is something we want to watch very carefully to make sure that we are protecting the community from any issues that might come up from these new products.
Okay.
Certainly one of the things that's on our radar and more are women's issues, women with bleeding disorder. We're learning a lot from the Choice Project about where women stand, the issues that they're having, where things are going well and where things are not going well. So we will continue to focus on this and really promote our Blood Sisterhood program this year.
Okay.
And last but not least, and this certainly isn't the last issue that we'll be following in 2015, are our inhibitors. This is a big issue for the CDC. It's a big issue, obviously, for the community, and we want to keep track of what's happening there. And the CDC will be coming out with some reporting on inhibitors starting in January 2015, and we will be following that closely and reporting to the community on that.
All righty. Wendi, thank you so much for that great information. We'll be certain to stay abreast of all of the things facing the community in the coming months. And what we're going to do is have additional webinars. So there may be another webinar in the coming months regarding the elections of November 2014, specialty tiers, biosimilars, women's issues, as well as inhibitors. So please, please, please stay informed about what's going on at HFA regarding the webinars, because these are topics that will affect you, and we are going to need your support, because who do legislators work for? They work for you, and you are your best advocate. Without you, we can't get anything passed, whether it's state legislation or federal legislation. Pictured here, and I like to highlight Hector Moreno. He hails from California. Hector also participated in HFA's Hill Day. Hector had a very interesting experience in that when he arrived in Washington, D.C. for Hill Day, his luggage was lost. So the outfit that you see him in was the outfit that he wore on the plane. His luggage did not arrive until the morning that he was scheduled to leave Washington, D.C. and head back to California. His is a story that I like to tell because without even planning it, he was prepared. So the tie, the jacket, the slacks that he wore, he was able to wear for the meetings. And no one knew that he had traveled 5 hours on a plane, that he didn't have his luggage, but he met with his representative whose office he's standing outside of. He's pointing to her door because he knows that she works for him. And the moral of the story is, don't let anything discourage you. We need you to tell these stories so we can get legislation passed. So with that, I'm going to conclude the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. Please, 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 again, stay abreast of the webinars that HFA has. We would like to thank Baxter for sponsoring today's webinar. We are able to bring you this great information because of unrestricted advocacy grants. So when you hear about a webinar happening, let's say in February or March, or if there's another HFA sponsored event, we just want to make sure that we are cognizant that we do have sponsors who help us to bring these things to the community members. On that note, if there are issues that you feel we should address that we haven't recently, please also let us know. Hemophiliafed.org is the website, and you can let us know the different issues that you would like to hear about, because we definitely want to make sure that we keep the community informed. So with that, we have a lot to discuss in the coming months, and you are your best advocate. This webinar will be available on HFA's YouTube channel if you'd like to go through the slides again and gain additional information. Thank you all so much for your time. We truly, truly appreciate you.